All right, good morning. How's everybody doing? This is Paint with Lovejoy. Let me just do a quick refresher just to make sure the video is showing up correct for you guys at home. Oh, come on, one more. All right. So today's painting is going to be a Galaxy, and we do not have a Traceable on there like I've had on some of the other demos and videos. And I kind of like doing that just so you don't always have to rely on a Traceable, and we can build the painting basically from scratch, from nothing. All right, so what we're gonna do, just getting my image all set, we are gonna be using the knife to kind of do the background, and we'll be using some black and even some of that purple. And we'll scrape it on there. I kind of like doing those, get the texture that it creates. And then we'll do a little splattering of stars, and then we have kind of a spiral galaxy coming through from the center. So we're going to be building our layers. And just a quick shout out to everybody that's jumped on. Let's see, we've got Anita, Denise, Chloe, Rhonda. Awesome. Thank you guys so much for hanging out and for your continued support. All right, so we've got our colors here today, and I realize I forgot to put the purple in the description box below, so I'll change that when I upload the pictures. But we're going to be using a knife today, and we're going to be doing this scraping method, and I want you to apply it kind of thin. I don't want you building up a whole lot of paint, so that way we can do a few layers, and I'm going to do mine on the thin side just so I can put my layers on top of it. But I'll recommend that you guys let it dry in between the layers at home. So with the palette knife, this one's a bit smaller one because I am on a small 8x10 canvas, but the knives come in different shapes. So if you've got a different knife, feel free to use that one. If you don't have a knife and you want to do this method, you can use an old credit card, an old gift card, anything that has basically a rigid surface that you can kind of scrape on in this manner. And you'll see that I kind of push my finger right here because I am kind of scraping. We are putting thin layers on. And we're going to kind of leave the center. I'm going to kind of create this kind of egg shape, ellipse. And we're going to kind of create our background on the outside of this. There we go. So play with the knife on what it's like just to kind of create a shape. So you're creating this almost egg shape kind of in the center. It is a little tilted to where it's, you know, kind of pointing this way. But this is going to be the center of our spiral galaxy that we'll be using today, or that we'll be creating. So from that point, then we're going to go from that circle, and I want you to just basically scrape from that circle all the way to the edges of your canvas, and then we're going to overlap it with some purple, and we'll do a little bit of fading in the center. I thought about getting a canvas and starting with a black canvas, but I figured it'd just be more fun to scrape it on here. There we go. And if you guys have any questions today, please feel free, just leave a comment in the chat, and I look over every 5 or 10 minutes or so and see if there's anything that needs to be talked about. Now, if you're painting at home and you don't want to do the knife, you can do this with a brush. You can lay your black paint on here, and then we'll be using a brushwork for the spiral portion of our galaxy. But you don't have to use a knife if you don't want to. With that being said, if you want to do this with colored pencils, markers, crayons, whatever you want, just utilize the tools that you have. Just use this video as a base guideline to get creative. And if you have any frustrations, anything that's been irritating you or any anxiety, this scraping method is very therapeutic to just feel a little bit better. Maybe not solve your issue or feeling, but you at least feel better and feel like you can handle it and move forward. So scrape away any and all frustrations. All right, so I'm actually going around and I'm scraping off any kind of excess paint. I'm just going to wipe that off. And as we kind of have this perimeter, I do want to kind of keep this nice and light because we'll be putting our yellows and our oranges in here. But I also don't want to keep this really strong, sharp line between the black and the white. So just kind of play with it, and I'm just going to kind of scrape some of this forward So maybe it's a little bit lighter, some of these little textures that are showing through. There we go. It'll give a little bit of visual blending, and then it's also taking any of that excess paint on the edge of that circle and kind of scraping it into the center so that way it will dry a little bit faster before we go to apply our other colors on there. So again, just by doing that, it's scraping off any excess paint. It's giving us a bit more of a choppy line, so it wasn't such a harsh line between the two colors. And then we're gonna wipe the knife off and grab purple paint. And I was trying to avoid my cat from running into the tripod, the stand for the camera. All right, cool. Oh, we've got quite a few more people jumping on. Let's see. Anita, Mike, Denise, Rhonda, Chloe. All right, you guys are all talking amongst yourselves. Excellent. All right, so now we're going to grab purple. This is totally optional, but I like the color combo. If you want to scrape blue on top of here, you can. And because the black is already wet, it is kind of changing the color of the purple a little bit. So just kind of play with it, have fun, slap it on there, scrape away. If you want that purple to be a little bit more solid, you could fully let your black paint dry and then scrape on top of it again. And by letting it dry and then scraping a new color on top of it with acrylic paint, it keeps that color a little bit more solid and saturated so they work a little more independently. So just something kind of fun to play with. All right, so while we wait for that to dry, I'm actually going to go ahead and take white and we're going to scrape that on there. So that way we'll do a little bit of splatter while that's still wet, and then we'll move into our spiral. But I want something on here, that way we can put our spiral on top of it. So as we take our white, we're going to scrape it on here and we start overlapping the black a little bit because it is wet. You've got your option. You can let it dry at home and then pick up the video again, or just jump right in. But I am going to get a little bit of a gray that happens here. But like I said, I just want something on the canvas. And this is even kind of nice to see as we scrape this white, and the white's on the transparent side because it's student grade paint. Kind of cool how you can see the lighter shades of gray through the black paint, through the transparency of the white paint. So again, as you just paint, you're just getting more and more observant of what you're creating, what you're doing, the weird steps and shapes that these paintings sit in. Because right now it's like a weird egg floating in outer space. We could possibly turn it into the top of that SpaceX little shuttle thing. Okay, so I think we're pretty good. Our spiral is actually going to take up a good portion, so it will be overlapping. These are just basically the base colors. All right, so the next set that we're going to be doing is we're going to actually be applying this pretty quick and pretty thick. Because my paint's wet, I'm going to apply it pretty thick. But if you're at home, let your paint dry before you go on to moving into the next step. So what we're going to do with this, we will move over to a brush. And we're going to do this, what we've been calling in the demos, the stabbing method. And we're going to kind of start with our spiral here, and we're going to spiral it out. We're going to leave some of the edge here because we want to kind of keep the splatters of the stars there when we get to that. But we're having this spiral out, and then we're going to do a few arms from it. And then kind of like when we were making the clouds, we're just going to do this stabbing method to kind of build this bulky, milky galaxy spiral Cosmo thing happening. All right, and as we make those brush strokes, I want you to kind of twirl that brush in your hand so that way you're not making the exact same brush stroke, and you'll see that I kind of spiral it out. So we're going to start with yellow and white, probably about a 1-to-1 ratio. And if your shade's a little bit different than mine, totally okay. All right, and we're going to start here, and I'm going to kind of hold my brush perpendicular. We're going to kind of get our base spiral in. So just starting in the center, and it's just this little tapping method. And if you want a really tight spiral, you can do that. Or if you want it kind of loose, I'm going to keep mine kind of loose to where there's just that one little curve. And again, as you get to your paint where it's a little bit more wet, just apply it a little bit thicker. We got a few other spirals shooting out from here. And same thing with this stabbing method. Totally put any frustrations, anything you want into it. It's really kind of the point of art some days. And as you're following along at home, just kind of observe the placement and the weird abstract design that I'm making right now and mimic that to the best of your ability. All right, so now we're gonna kind of start filling in this space now that we've got kind of our base form on here. And it's really light yellow in the center. So we'll come back in with some of that white. And then it gets a little bit more orange, a little bit of red, and then we do have a little bit of teal hanging out on the edges. All right, so still if you have to make your yellow and white mixture a second or third time, don't stress about the exact same shade. We've got quite a bit of variety happening. So now I'm actually just kind of filling in that space once we kind of got our structure in there. And when that dries a little bit more, we'll come in a little bit more heavy-handed with the pure white and bring that center back. Now we're going to start introducing a little bit of orange. So still sticking with the yellow and the white. Now we're adding a touch of orange to it. Go into a bit kind of a pastel-y orange. And again, you can change your shade. And what you are going to notice as we overlap on the yellow area, we're doing the exact same application, it is going to mix with some of that yellow color underneath. So it will change shades a little bit. If you don't feel like doing this with your brush, you can use Q-tips, or you could actually do this with finger painting. I did a Galexy painting similar to this, and we finger painted for a bunch of kids, and that was a lot of fun. Super messy, but a lot of fun. When you do this with your brush, because you are basically slamming the end of your bristles into the canvas, it does ruin your brushes a lot quicker than if you treat them nicely. So this is a way to kind of abuse your brushes. And when you're using student brushes, sometimes that's nice to just be able to do. Okay, so we've kind of got our base on here. Nice, looks like a tornado from the sky. Okay, so I'm actually going to wipe off a lot of that excess paint, and you'll see that it kind of, again, it starts to ruin my bristles. Sometimes good art can be created with destruction of tools. Oh, nice. Just looking to see if we have any other questions. Hey, Stacy, you haven't tried the knife yet. I'd say give it a try. It's very stress relieving. I've got a few demos with the knife, and then I also have my intro to knife scraping on my Paint with Lovejoy website. And that one you've got 4 options, and we'll go through probably 4 or 5 layers of the scraping of the knife. But very therapeutic and especially appropriate with everything going on. So just scrape away what you need. Okay, so let's see, I was trying to debate if we should go ahead and do the stars. That is pretty dry. All right, so we're gonna do splattered stars in here. And let me throw some more white on my plate. And this one, I think when we did I think it was just the Northern Lights painting that we did the splattering of the stars, but this is a lot of fun. All right, whoops. Yep, cats are running around. Sorry for the shaking of the tripod. Okay, guys, go hang out in the front room. This is their little witching hour. In about 20 minutes, then they'll fall asleep. Okay, so two different methods for applying kind of the splatter of the stars. We're going to use the white paint and we're going to water it down quite a bit. And then you can either do a tapping method or once you have the white paint on there, kind of a flick. So try both and see what works for you. So I'm getting a good amount of water on my brush. I'm going to use it on this side. So watering down that white paint quite a bit. And then from here, and yep, it does look like it's showing up. Cool. So it's just kind of that tapping method. Reload with more paint. Another way to just kind of get some frustrations out too. Was kind of looking forward to today's painting, knowing we were going to do some things we don't do in some of the other demos. So last time I've taught a Galexy painting, I had some people do this with not only white for their stars, but they did like light teal, light orange, kind of some neon colors. So you don't have to make your stars just white. If you want to try the other application, it's a bit more of a flick. I kind of like the tapping method a little bit more, but try both, see what you like. And make sure wherever you are doing this, this usually has a lot of splatter. So make sure that you're either outside or somewhere, drop cloth, or just know where you're at so you can clean up any of the splatter. So add as many stars as you want on your perimeter of your Galexy. And then we get to go back to our stabbing method. All right. And if you need to, sometimes get out of your chair, look at your painting from a distance and go, is that enough stars? Is it not? And just kind of assess what you might need. When we look at it from that distance, that is the normal viewing distance for most things in life. And that's the distance most people are going to be looking at your artwork. All right. So pretty good stars, like it. Wiping that off because I'll probably use that brush a little bit later on. Okay, so we will overlap a little bit of those stars, then we're going to go back in the center because I definitely got some in there. But let's get a little bit of our perimeter of that teal, that light teal, and we're going to go back to that stabbing method, that same effect, and we literally just kind of have our teal just on the perimeter, and then we'll be moving into the reds and yellows again and tightening that spiral. So for our light teal, pull some of that white aside. Start with a small amount of teal because you can always add a little bit more. All right. And I do want it pretty bright so that way we have a nice contrast. So again, here I'm going to be keeping with the perimeter. And this one's got kind of a little tail that's shooting off that edge. And now just going back and kind of thickening it up. Pull some of it into that little egg shape. Got a few little arms. These are a little bit skinnier, so I'm not pressing as hard. Need to make a little bit more. And if you need to, you can actually move down to the pointy brush too to get into smaller little tight lines, because we do have a few of these little skinny little wispies happening. Or just again, play with your pressure. More pressure is going to make a wider mark. Lighter pressure is going to make a skinnier mark. And if you're holding your breath right now, whether you're painting or not, just relax, big exhale. And it is, I find it fascinating, no matter how many years I've been painting and how many demos I've done or things that I've taught, paintings really come together in the last 10% of getting the details on there. because I'm remembering back to what it looked like at that weird egg shape with the black around it. So as you get in the groove of painting and enjoying the process, I do recommend that you take progress photos while you paint. And when you go back and look at those photos, notice how it looks different from one photo to the next, how it looks different as you get rid of the white space, as you add more details, and just start building your own conversation with yourself of what artwork means to you, of how you're looking at things in the world, because that's really what a lot of art is. You're learning about yourself and how you look at the world. All right, so now I'm actually going to add a little bit more teal, a little bit intense, a little more intense, so that way we're going to go right on top of a few of the areas. And as I'm looking at my brush, I'm realizing I've got a lot of built up excess paint, so I'm just going to wipe that off. There we go. And when you do that and wipe it off, it does bring your bristles back together so you can make some of those smaller marks. And this actually, I wanted a little bolder, so I'm just going right for that direct teal. And it may be one of those things that you mix a color on your plate, and then when you apply it to your canvas, it looks totally different. You need to adjust. Go right ahead and adjust when that happens. What you're seeing is what we call color theory. You interpret the color based on the color next to it. So that's why it looks different, and that's why there's constant adjustments in art. All right, so using some of these colors to kind of define the interior of the spiral, we will be moving back into our yellows and oranges and a little bit of red, but just getting these cool colors on here first. And for this video and any video, if you want to switch out colors, if you prefer to do these in shades of purples and pinks, if you want them all in shades of yellow and orange, by all means, go right ahead and change it up. All right, so let's see, I'm looking over at questions. Oh, what do I use to record? Okay, I'll eventually have to take a picture of my setup, and I'm still figuring out everything just to make it more efficient. So as I'm filming, the camera is directly above as I paint flat on a table, and then I just have it framed, so all you see is the table and then my hands when they come into the frame. Same thing when I shoot for the other videos that are on my YouTube channel. I'll shoot from above, and when I was in my studio in Liberty Station, I literally was like not even a mile from the airport. So because of the airplanes going over, I would film the video. So right now I'm just using pure white and going back with the spiral. So when I had to shoot with all the plane noises, I'd film the video, edit everything, render it out, and then watch the video and do the narration over top at home. So now that I'm at home, it is so nice that I can actually talk to you guys and not have to pause while the plane goes over. I think some of the beginning demos, I was filming them in the studio. It didn't seem too bad, but it was still kind of annoying. So things change and adjust. I actually film just with my camera. You don't need super crazy expensive equipment, and I've been filming with that for the last probably 2-3 years. And even when I was in college, I did get a motion graphics degree, so I'm pretty comfortable video editing and graphic design and doing all of this stuff. So I appreciate being as much of a computer geek as I am, as well as being able to do physically creative stuff. So as I've been just applying this white, you will notice that it has changed in a few areas because some of my paint's still wet. That's okay. But I'm literally just taking that same color, that same stabbing method, and just applying. I'm going to be moving into yellow next. So wiping off that excess paint and then filming or grabbing the yellow. And then even back to that question, for editing, I use Adobe Premiere and After Effects, and that's what I was trained in school. So I do love the Adobe products. All right, so just taking that direct yellow, same thing, same stabbing method, and as I overlap a little bit of the white and the other colors, it is changing a little bit. So just play with that, have fun. This is your Galaxy. It can be any color you want. Anything that you want to happen in your Galaxy can. That's why it's yours. All right, and I'm going to wipe off that extra, and then we're going to go back to that kind of sherbety orange color. So white, yellow, and then start adding your orange. And then from here, we'll go a little bit more intense, and then we'll start adding some of that red into it. So as you get to where you're adding more and more layers on top of here, and you've already got kind of a wet base with that white and the yellow we've already applied, because it's got so much of a base, use light pressure for this one compared to maybe the amount of pressure that you were using in the beginning to make the whiter brush strokes. And with that less pressure, there'll be less mixing of the colors. Again, each one of you is going to find your own kind of balance with this. All right, so let's see, I'm actually going to go up to this one since I've definitely, we're going to give that brush a break. And I like this one because it's got a bit more of a sharper edge. And because the bristles are a little closer together, because it's a clean brush, I can make a few smaller marks as I start introducing more deeper orange and red. So now I'm just going with that direct orange, and literally we're just going to tap the brush as I kind of move it along. Let's see, and it's not a full-on direct in the center. There we go. Okay. Just looking, deciding, going if it goes before the white, above the white, or below the white. All right. So again, I'm just kind of keeping light pressure, literally just using the end of the brush, and I am kind of turning the brush as it pulls its way out, or as it's kind of mimicking that shape of the spiral. And there are a few spots where this color is in a few other areas outlining. And because I'm using student grade paint, some of the texture that you are seeing on here, it will not stay. It will actually flatten a little bit as it dries. All right, so now going in with a little bit more red. I'm not going to go in with this direct red, so I'm actually mixing the red and the orange, but we're going to use the same application. And I'm just kind of putting it on the outside of the orange. And if you're finding that maybe that orange and red isn't bold enough, just go ahead and start using that direct red. Like I said, again, it's just kind of on the outside of that orange. And I'm going to take a look in the phone so I can see it kind of from that distance. Oh, it looks like a cyclone in the middle of space. Nice. All right. So I would say that if it wasn't for some of the suggestions for the demos, I would not paint some of the subject matters. So this has been a good challenge. And some have been successful, some have not. This one, I think, doesn't quite have the Galaxy feel I was going for. I'm going to move back to white. But it's definitely interesting. So using just white, going to put a few more highlights on there, and then that just kind of brings us into the conclusion of today's painting. I do appreciate everybody hanging out and showing up and giving me all the great suggestions to kind of paint and push myself and challenge. And one of the reasons I started doing the demos was to kind of have consistency as everything's going on in this crazy world, and also to push myself out of my comfort zone. And if I can push myself out of my comfort zone, I'm hoping that it gives my students courage to try painting at home. Or if you've never done something and pushed yourself out of a comfort zone, I want you to do that. Sometimes they're successful, sometimes they don't look like what you originally intended, but that's just part of the process. You got to get up and do it again. All right. And most of the videos on my channel are geared towards first-time and beginner painters. And when you're kind of over, you know, even my style of painting, or you're getting really comfortable with the painting process, I recommend checking out a bunch of the other YouTubers out there. There's some awesome step-by-step tutorials, but not all of them are geared towards first-time painters. So I kind of can get you a good intro. And then, like I said, take lessons from other teachers, take the parts that work, and develop your own creative outlets. All right. Oh, thanks. It is kind of a weird 60 Groovies Galexy, but it'll work. So I appreciate you guys hanging out with me every day. This really is awesome and fun. And I believe tomorrow's painting is a vineyard. And then I will be getting the rest of the traceables up on the website later today for the next, I think, 20 paintings that are on the demo list. So really appreciate you guys hanging out with me and all of your support. I hope you have a great day, and I will catch up with you guys tomorrow. Cheers.